Produced by Podcast Architects.
Welcome to the first ever episode of Hit the Gas. I'm joined with guest Ben Wiggins, founder and CEO of Podcast Architects. How are you, Ben?
Doing well, Jake. How are you?
I'm pretty good. So I just want to talk to you a little bit about our company beliefs. Who are we and what's our mission? Why did you decide to start Podcast Architects?
Well, the honest answer is I didn't. I was hosting a show called the Mays Mastercast for Mays Business School at Texas A&M University. And after we hard launched that show in early 2019, people started reaching out to me and to our producer, Kyle Ackerman, and asking us for help launching their shows. The message was, hey, we like your show. We've wanted to do a podcast forever. We don't really know how to do it. Would you help us get started? And so after the seventh or eighth time this happened, we realized, hey, there might be a business model here. It appears there's demand. And so we kicked it off as a consulting firm, and it didn't work at all. And then and that's why our web address is still podconsulting.co.
Right.
But then we thought, okay, there's a demand for something here because people keep asking about it. So what is it? What is it that people are actually looking for? And we tried pivoting to a more of a full service model, and that worked a little better.
All right.
And then we kept paying attention to the feedback that we were getting. And feedback requests can be dangerous when your business is not operating yet, but when your business is operating and you're talking to people who are already paying for the service, feature requests are very helpful. And feedback obviously is like air for a company. Mm-hmm. You have to have feedback. And so we kept listening, and we started layering on more video, because at first we were mostly about audio. It was about, a traditional podcast.
Right.
And then as we saw the market kind of turning more to video, we were like, all right, we're going to do video. And now we always do video. Like, I don't remember the last time we did a show where we didn't have video involved in some way. And then we started doing more stuff with promotion, and that kind of moved the needle again. And then we started doing more stuff with social media pieces, and that really moved the needle.
All right.
And we just kept layering on more and more stuff, and some stuff that we tried didn't work. A lot of it didn't work, but now we have a pretty robust end-to-end planning, pre-production, production, post, distribution, promotion, like moving to conversions and things like that. We have a pretty robust process for all of that. And so how did we have the idea for it? Well, one day at a time,
Right.
I guess is the best answer to that.
Right. Okay. That makes sense. So what's the company's mission? You've talked to me a little bit about this personally, but I wanted to kind of get it on here. So what's the end goal for the company?
Well, the mission is everyone deserves a voice. We're here to help you share yours. And we take that mission very seriously. And the end goal is kind of wrapped up in, we use buzzwords like mission and vision a lot. But our mission is we want everybody to be able to share their voice. I don't know how familiar you or our listeners are with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's like a pyramid, and water and and air and shelter and so forth are very fundamental needs. Food, and then you get up into more emotional needs, safety, things like that. And at the top of that pyramid is self-actualization.
Okay.
I believe that a very important part of self-actualization is sharing your story and talking about what your message is, what your personal message is, your company's message is, your institution's message, your nonprofit's message, whatever it may be. Both people and organizations have this desire to share their stories. And as it happens, this is also one of the most powerful forms of marketing. Any message, and you've heard me say this before, but the most compelling vehicle for any message is story. If you want somebody to understand a message, tell them a story.
Right.
And the most compelling vehicle for story is a franchise of movies. But if you don't have $1 billion, it's a talk show.
Right.
That's the best bang for your buck. B-roll cutaways, some motion graphics, things to engage the eye and the ear. And so our mission is to help people and institutions, businesses and nonprofits tell their stories through video podcasting. And so the vision of where that goes is, so part one is that everybody in the world, everybody in every institution in the world that has broadband internet access, so that there's some limitations there.
Right.
But everybody that has broadband internet access has a method and an avenue for sharing their story, whether they're working with us or building their story based on watching content like this
Sure.
or listening to content like this. Everybody can get to that top of the pyramid, the self-actualization piece of it. And so that's part one of our vision. Part two is that I believe it's important for us as a company, even though we are a for-profit business, it's important for us to be donating time and helping carry out our mission, putting our money where our mouth is, so to speak, with shows that are never going to pay us, because those voices are important too.
Right.
It's important to get those stories told. Many people and even companies are not able to spend, thousands of dollars on their show, and our products are not cheap.
Right.
So, but sometimes they are free. And especially, and we don't do full service production for free, but what we do is offer people insight and guidance in terms, the first question they always ask is, what equipment do I need to buy?
Right.
And so, we will spend some time talking about that, and we'll talk about what are the bottlenecks that you're not aware of yet.
Right.
So that's part two, and that everybody in the company should be able to spend 1 hour per week, 50 hours per year on doing that on company time, and that we would pay for people to consult for no charge to the client, so to speak.
Right.
And help get all of the voices shared, not just the big academic institutions' voices, not just the big rich companies' voices, not just the nonprofits with a lot of eager sponsors, but everybody.
Right.
Part three is we are based in, and we're founded in the Brazos Valley in Texas, Bryan College Station, Central Texas, heart of the Texas Triangle. And this place is important to us. And we've gotten a lot of help from local business, from Texas A&M University, from the cities of Bryan and College Station. And we've had some acquisition interest from elsewhere. But assuming that we can continue to get the cooperation of these communities, and that they continue to believe in us, we will continue to believe in them. I feel like this place is fundamentally important to me in some way. And so assuming we get the respect that we feel like is appropriate for a company that is growing very quickly and adding a lot of value to the market, we want to be here and to make this place an important part of our story. That's part three. Part four is a financial goal, and we don't necessarily talk about those publicly, but in behind closed doors, we spend a good deal of time talking
Sure.
about where do we want to be financially. We are a for-profit business, and we're trying to accomplish life goals, and some of those involve money.
Sure,
And
absolutely.
So,
Yeah, everybody likes money, so.
yeah, some more than others, but I think that how much people are, like money and are sometimes enamored with money often depends on, where they are in their own life story. I think that changes for many people as they get older, and probably depending to some degree on what their life circumstances have been growing up.
Sure, absolutely. I just have one more question for you, and then we can wrap this up. But so what are some of the different industries that you've worked in? So you mentioned a little bit earlier, that you've worked with a lot of different institutions. Can you name a couple of those?
Yeah, so when I first graduated from college, I worked in sports. I was actually a graduate assistant under Coach Fran when he was at Texas A&M with the football team, and it was an interesting experience. I loved the work. I loved working with Coach Fran's staff, but I didn't really like the life very much. It was just a lot of hours, and I felt like a lot of the hours that were being spent at the office, we just could have been more efficient with that time. Look, the staff that I worked with had a significant record of success, and we did not succeed here at Texas A&M, but I don't know that that was necessarily because we were, we weren't doing things right. I think there's a lot of luck that goes into that, and it's a zero-sum game.
Right.
Somebody has to win, somebody has to lose, and there's 100 plus teams in Division I now, and the bowl subdivision, and only one gets to win the big championship every year, and then there's another dozen that win conference titles, and everybody else goes home kind of annoyed at the end of the year. So it's a hard business to be a part of. After that, I worked in the entertainment business. I was an independent film producer and a television writer for about 8 years in Los Angeles for most of that. And I liked that work a lot, and the life was pretty good too. The challenge for me on that was I was working with, in particular, with a writer who's very successful, has definitely written on shows that you would have heard of, that your family has probably watched.
Wow.
But this writer, in between doing those shows, had been out of work for quite some time, and his career had gone very, very cold, and he was quite a bit in debt to a family member, and he was fortunate that he had a family member that he could go in debt to, had to sell his house, move back into a condo.
Wow.
And this was when he was 40 years old, which is a little younger than I am now. And I remember thinking, this guy that I was working with, he didn't have a family. He didn't want a family necessarily. And he was kind of just comfy being on his own. That wasn't the path for me. I knew I wanted a family, and I knew that real serious financial instability would cause problems. And also there was the issue that this guy I was working with, and many of the other writers that I was working with, were frankly more talented than I was. I've always thought of myself as a reasonably smart person, but smart and talented are not always the same thing.
Of course, yeah.
And being able to do that job particularly well was something that I was good at, even very good at. I feel like I developed a very good sense of story and how to write television well and how to build a story, but I was never that great at comedy. And I didn't really have a desire to hone my comedy chops and really become great at writing comedy. Dialogue was never a particular strength of mine. In screenwriting and writing for television, you're angling toward conflict. And sometimes the way the scene resolves itself is you come to a compromise, but you're always looking for, how can I escalate? How can I make people more upset with each other? How can I build something where there's tension on the screen? It might be two people struggling against each other, or it might be one person struggling against themselves, or struggling against nature, or whatever it may be, but you need that conflict.
Right.
And my personality is actually always engineered to find compromise. So, engineered is the wrong word. I'm just wired that way.
Sure.
So I'm always looking for, well, how can these people get along? And that is at odds with the craft of writing plays or television or movies.
Sure.
And so that was always a struggle for me. And there were other ways in which I just wasn't really built to be a television writer.
Right.
So I'm dealing with all these people who are more talented than I am. One of the most successful of them is sitting right next to me most of the time. And he was broke and out of work at age 40, which was a place I couldn't afford to be.
Right.
So I walked away from that business with some regret.
Right.
But it was the right thing to do. And I went to business school, and I have a business in the financial sector as well. And that's been a great experience as well. I've really loved learning about, money and how it works, and finance and corporate finance and stock investment and all of those sorts of things. That's been a great pleasure. I still have that business and do that job. And I don't know if I'm answering your question.
No, yeah, you are. You did a great job. I think that answers some of the questions I had. You went to school here in A&M for your business degree, correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
and I did a previous master's with the Department of Kinesiology and Sport Management. We produce their show now, so shouts to Dr. Marlene Dixon and the Department of kinesiology and sport management.
Right.
So
Yeah, and we've done A&M. We've done stuff mostly schools, and I guess kind of to rephrase my questions, what are some of the industries that you had worked in within Podcast Architects?
So Podcast Architects has served a lot of industries. We've served education and kind of the academic sector. We've served engineers, architects, design build firms. We've served leadership, biopharmaceuticals, and kind of the health sciences sector. We've got dozens of shows going. Oh, the military leadership, the financial sector. We did some work with Discover, food service, Chick-fil-A,
Right.
oil and gas
Yeah, we just got back from
services,
Houston.
and
Yeah.
consulting with Alvarez and Marsal, and previously before that with Carnwright Group.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think that's an interesting cross section of what we do.
Awesome. That's fantastic. Well, if y'all would like a podcast, be sure to click the link in our description or visit podconsulting.co. Please subscribe and like the video, and tell your friends about us. Thanks.
Produced by Podcast Architects.